without any further ado. Thanks.
Chris Broughton received both his bachelor's and master's degree in photography from Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, California. He has been involved in photographic education since 1996. He serves as a full-time professor of photography at Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, teaching the undergraduate and graduate programs for over 22 years. He currently teaches photography at Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles, Antelope Valley College, and Ventura College. Teaching has had some wonderful opportunities. In 1996, Christopher taught for the University of Pittsburgh and this semester of sea program where he spent 100 days traveling to 10 different countries around the world on a ship. For the past 10 years, he's had the opportunity to teach students in Paris and London during the semester, or during the summer, I'm sorry. In addition to teaching for the past 5 years, he's been part of the commercial photography studio team at Decker's Outdoor Corporation, Hoka, UGG, Teva, Anu, providing e-commerce images across the corporation's different brands. In 2025, the studio is predicted to provide over 50,000 images. Here's Chris.
Should I sit, stand, lay down? Thanks for having me, guys. And what I want to make sure is that if there's any questions at any time, please, this is for you. I listen to myself talk all day. And but if you have any questions at any time, I just wanted to share. Andrew asked if I could do the presentation, and I had a conflict, and then had the opportunity to come here, and it's much better to give it in person than over Zoom. And Andrew said, "What's your program going to be about?" And I thought about it, and I said, thinking like a photographer. I am a photographer. I work in photography every day. The beautiful thing is that I get to work with about 15 former students at Decker's Outdoors, and we're a huge photo studio. We literally delivered 50,000 images in fiscal year 2025. Just to give you an idea, I shot all day Saturday and Sunday in the studio, and I created 100 images. So to create 50,000, that'll give you the idea of how many man hours. And there's about twice as many man hours in addition to that in the retouching and the formatting. Now, the beautiful thing is I don't have to go into the studio at all for a while. And I get to stay at home and retouch and hang out with my poodle. So if you have any questions about commercial photography, please feel free, or just about anything. So I thought I'd do something, create, compose, and control in an uncontrolled environment. Because if you can do that, you're in a controlled environment. You're in an environment where you can set up a tripod, you can lackadaisically take lighting and reading. It's gonna be much easier. But if you can work in an uncontrolled environment, that means that you can shoot pretty much anything. And why is my remote control not talking? We'll just do this. Interesting. Why?
You may have to click on.
Well, why? Oh, do I have to do that? So, maybe now it'll work. So I like quotes. And one of my favorite quotes has always been a quote that Brett Weston said, that his dad used to say. He said, "I used to be able to look down at my feet and see something to photograph." And what that does is that puts the act of creativity back onto your shoulders. We don't have to go to Thailand to get a cool photograph. We can take a photograph right out here in this parking lot. But sometimes we have to work really hard at it. I'll give you what I used to do. I used to shoot film. I loved shooting film. All these are film photographs. I spent, can't tell you how many months in Death Valley, North Dakota. This is on the right where where my family lives in Montana. I drove my Tundra to the Arctic Ocean. I spent a lot of time around the Four Corners area. Of course, the basalt plug at Shiprock, New Mexico, to the ancient bristlecone pine forest. And back when there used to be a spray painted wall in Antelope Canyon, that said, white man keep out, and I drove my truck into it. That's how it used to be in the eighties. Nobody ever went there. If I had muse in this world, it would be clouds. I did a lot of consulting and work for Eastman Kodak, working with different manufacturer films, different manufacturers' papers. I went to a photograph for Anselm's, with a tripod in the ground, in the Grand Tetons. Of course, we have my wife's a botanist, and she's the one who told me the Joshua tree is not a tree, it's a lily. I don't know anything except the fun little tricks. I spent a lot of time in North Dakota. I think North Dakota is an amazing place to go photograph. Up in our Owens Dry Lake, pretty much all over California, the Sitka forests that are on fire in Alaska, to the Hoh rainforest and the redwoods in California. My license plate says Salton Sea. I've been spending time out in the Salton Sea since I ran into a book by Richard Mizrak that was photographed in the 80s called Desert on Fire. Talk about a place that's changed a lot in the last couple of years, and that is, of course, the Salton Sea. But I would say I was a roots and rocks photographer. I didn't include people, and you're lucky if you see any marks of humanity anywhere in my images. So this is what I used to do. I've there twice. Okay. T-Max, medium format, sometimes 4x5. Black and white has always resonated with me. I taught a lot of classes. We started every student off in film, right? That's how the world of photography used to be. We started off with 35 millimeter and 4x5. And I love this quote by Robert Frank. It says, black and white are the colors of photography. They symbolize the alternatives of hope and despair, to which mankind is forever subjected. So we see in color, but I like to think in black and white. And to me, probably because black and white is an abstraction. And I love the idea that I can take something and I can make it mine. But sometimes when you're working in Hollywood and some guy walks into Taco Bell and he's wearing a gold outfit, you have to stick with color. I work a lot with my students in black and white conversions. I enjoy the workflow process in digital, and if anybody ever says a monochrome sensor is good, you don't know what you're talking about, because now I have every black and white contrast control filter in my pocket. I got reds, I got yellows, I got greens, I got yellow greens. I can put a red on the sky, and I can put a blue in the shadow. I have spent a lot of time in Paris, spent a lot of time recently in London. I think I'm going to go back to London next summer, teaching students and using both the culture and the museums as a stepping stone for talking about art. I know a lot of people that want to be photographers and they want to create art, but very few of those photographers have ever even taken an art class. I would highly recommend everybody take as much vocabulary in the art world as possible. Oh, and by the way, I love Keith Haring. Just got a Keith Haring t-shirt the other day. So, me, when I read this quote, it really made me think. Because it says, the more pictures you see, the better you are as a photographer. And what it's really putting this is the ownership back on you about increasing your photographic vocabulary. Now, I have 2 pages here that I'm going to share with Andrew, and he can pass it out to your group. But I think this is a nice starting master's list for looking at what I would primarily say is street photography. You know, Bruce Gilden and his in your face with this camera, to Cartier-Bresson. And when we look at Cartier-Bresson's work, the one thing I want you to know is that Cartier-Bresson didn't snap these photographs. Each one of these photographs, he anticipated. He knew what was going to happen, and he waited, just like the cat waits for the mouse. The cat doesn't chase it around. It just goes and sits there and waits. And the photograph of the man walking over the puddle, there's no way with a Leica that you could see it happening. Whip your Leica out of your pocket, focus, push, oh, send the meter reading, right? He saw people walking across this puddle behind Dar Salazar in Paris. And he just waited for the right guy. The same thing with the guy riding down the street. He didn't see that happening. It's a blind corner. He had seen it happen, or he anticipated it was going to happen. And he just waited. And a lot of street photography is anticipation. I have a really good friend, his name's Ralph Clevenger. He's an amazing zoologist. He's also a wildlife photographer. He knows what animals are going to do. I bet you most people who photograph children know what children are going to do. Sports photographers. Let me see, if you photograph airplanes, you probably know how they fly. You probably can anticipate where they go. And the photographing on the street is the same way. Martin Parr, and Martin Parr is in your face, and Martin Parr is in your face with a color. George Tice. I contemplate how a photograph will be seen in the future when the subject matter no longer endured. Walker Evans taught us to take photographs, but think about how they're going to be viewed in the future, not viewed today. Paul Campanegro made me fall in love with movement and motion. And this is, of course, his White Reindeer Deer. The influence of mystery is the greatest. Gary Winogrand. I love Gary Winogrand, and when I teach in Los Angeles, I always go to that where the photograph on the right is taken, and that is Hollywood and Vine. You can go there today. You can stand right there. Vivian Meyer, hopefully you've seen her video. And Vivian Meyer is a true, amazing photographer. Sebastian Salgado and his look at indigenous cultures. But since I've been photographing on the street, to me, not only photographing people, but selecting the right images, learning about human gesture. In other words, how humans look. Helmut Newton and his fashion work, Robert Mapplethorpe and his portraits, Herb Ritz and his black and white portraits out at El Mirage, Richard Avedon and his American series of people. Because when you're on the street, like we have the images here of Robert Frank, you have two things. You have the environment of the street, but you also have people. And to me, oh, come on, lost person area. When I saw this, I'm like, you mean images can have humor? I love irony. I love humor. I would pay to have a lost person area at the Antelope Valley Fair. So you could go and just wait. I mean, but my daughter said, Dad, what did you and Mom do before you had cell phones? You went and stood in the lost person area. Elliot Erwitt and his humor, but also his commercial work. Robert Doisneau. Most people don't know that Robert Doisneau was a fashion photographer, but he honed his camera skills photographing on the street. Both of these images are set up, by the way. Robert Doisneau put these paintings in a art storefront and stood on the inside and took photographs of people looking. The photograph on the right, Robert Doisneau actually has a model of these two people because it was used for an issue of Life magazine. And he said he had seen it happen. Now, when I went to Paris, I wanted to go see where he took that picture, and I wanted to go to Hotel de Ville. I kept finding there's Hotel de Villes all over the place. I didn't realize that it means City Hall. But that's the City Hall of Paris. Helen Levitt photographed the block that she lived on. She was just as much of a fixture, and that's how she learned how to disappear. Oh, people say you're a documentary photography. I don't even know what that means. So people say you're a photojournalist. I'm really published in journals. Oh, then you're a fine art photographer. Then I say I'm not. I aspire to be a fine photographer. We don't have to have labels. Bruce Davidson and his photographs in the UK. Andre Cortez. Lee Freeland. Another, oh, I got two of Gary Winogrand in there. Another set of Vivian Meyer images. And probably my favorite hero, and that's the Joel Meyerowitz. But to me, I look at these photographers' images, and to me, an art teacher told me, she said, when you see something, it will forever echo off your soul because it's part of you. And if you look at a lot of good work, it's eventually gonna come off. So keep looking. I really believe there are things that nobody would see if I didn't photograph them. And I'm gonna hopefully show you some of them. Now, the biggest challenge of photographing on the street, this is a big list, and I'm just gonna give it to you. And it is, when you go out on the street, what do you photograph? How do you approach it? You just go out and push the button? No, you go out and you work. Joel Meyerowitz said, I believe that street photography is the central issue of photography. It's purely photographic, whereas other genres such as landscape or portraiture are a little bit more applied to the traditional arts. I mean, you really don't see street paintings. A little bit, there's a few of them, but it is a pretty rare form. And I want this. It's a slideshow. We'll just skip that. And then we'll start. It says, wandering around with nothing particular in mind to photograph may seem strange. But when that bit of magic happens, it becomes the most natural and wonderful thing to do. You just have to go out with your camera with the intention of creating. Now, I thought I'd give you a toolbox. It's not a big toolbox. I always use two cameras. I use two cameras for two reasons. Number one, sometimes these new digital electronic things break. That way you always have a camera. And the other thing is sometimes it's quicker to switch cameras than it is to switch lenses. And these are small cameras. That's a little Sony A66, 6700 APS-C, and I do have a Leica Q3. The nice thing about the Leica is there's one lens, and if you want to put some blinders on, get a camera that has one lens that you can't change, go out and make pictures. You don't have to think about changing lenses. You don't have to think about pretty much anything except using the focal length that you have. A couple things that I always have with me that you might not think of. I always have a set of earplugs. I have numerous occasions come upon music concerts, rock concerts, street concerts, or really loud construction areas. I told Andrew about 20 years ago, I came out and I photographed the 24-hour motorcycle endurance race out of Willow Springs. After around 4 hours, I thought I was gonna die because all I had was pieces of paper to stick in my ears. And by the next day, I was close to being dead. Now I always have a set of earplugs. I always will carry with me an extra battery for each camera. I've given up on taking hard drives and computers. I just have a bunch of 512 gig cards. You can't fill those up in a couple weeks because that's like 80,000 photographs or more. I do always bring, let's see if this works. Does it work? That's okay. Huh.
What's it supposed to do?
Well, let's see if it'll work. Hold on. It's supposed to do. Oh, there you go. Can you see? Oh, you can't. Actually, it shows up on my screen, but it's a highlighter. But I always now carry a phone rechargeable battery, not for my phone, but I can actually charge my camera batteries on location just in case it dies. I always will carry a neutral density filter or two, and we'll talk about that. You need a little tripod? Gotta have a tripod. Gotta have you. Typically, the way I shoot, I actually set my viewfinders all black and white. Mirrorless cameras, you can set the viewfinder to black and white. I always shoot raw. But when I switch my viewfinders to black and white, it helps me see something which I'll call figure ground much easier. In other words, distinguishing between the subject and the background. I always use silent shutter, 7 to 11 frames per second, I shoot raw. AFC, which is a confusing thing, I use about 90% of the time. I use mainly aperture priority, and I now have switched to using auto ISO on both of the cameras. Now, sometimes I'll always turn all this stuff off, but most of the time I'll keep it right there. To me, every image that you're gonna see, nobody's seen. These are all new. This is kind of like the first blush. I like to see sometimes how close I can get somebody to take the photograph. But there is something called the observer effect. And the observer effect is what happens when somebody notices a camera is pointed at them. We change. We sit up. I give you my good side. I check to make sure there's no any more lettuce between my teeth. But we change. I'm more interested in pure humanity. I want to be the fly on the wall. And here is where cameras that have flip-up screens, genius. I shoot very, very frequently through my viewfinder. I a lot of times shoot from the waist or mid-chest. And I'm trying to capture people going through their everyday lives. Yes, I am 2.5 feet away from these people. I have my camera out, but I figured out how to focus on them, figured out how to take a photograph of them, but I've also figured out a way to not ruin it. I'm not interested in making fun of anybody. I'm more interested in just looking. I want to look at people. I find people fascinating, they're interesting, and I also don't want to impede upon their space. I just want to look. And to me, oh yeah, one of my favorite places to go is an art museum. Because I love art, but I also love to photograph people looking at art. And every once in a while, I will do what I would consider to be a street portrait, where the observer effect is known, she knows I'm taking the picture, and it's just part of the sport. Part of the sport. I saw this dapper guy in the secondhand store. I'm like, dude, you are on point. I really want to take your photograph. I've never had anybody say no. They're usually flattered. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I love to play with scale. I love the idea of silhouette. And I really, really, really love photographing people in their environment. The little guy in between the steps right there, just right in the middle. But nobody pays attention nowadays. Everybody has a cell phone in their hand. Everybody's glued to what I call this portable piece of kryptonite, and it's even easier to take pictures of people. They don't know. This is inside the Tate Modern in London, and we got to go back next year because at the end of June is going to be a Frida Kahlo exhibit with over 130 pieces of hers there. Amazing, amazing. I love to work with silhouettes. I love to work with space. I always am thinking about design. I mean, come on, this guy is leaning up against the exhaust pipes of the Pompidou. How cool is that? And yes, he was tall. He was tall. You do have the advantage with digital cameras. This is now we can take photographs pretty much anywhere. We can take photographs in pretty much any light. I mean, come on. The reason I went to the motorcycle endurance race 20 years ago is I was trade trialing T-Max 3200. The first time Kodak had made a 3200 ISO film. I'll shoot 20,000 ISO, and it's like, how high do you need to go? It doesn't really matter. I love the tube. I love photographing people in mass transit. I feel like we're all crammed in this little box, and when you're right before the door closes, I'm going to take advantage of you, pull them, and take the picture. I've never actually had somebody say, "Don't take my picture," by the way, in like 10 years, because I'm not interested. I love going to see street art. I love to play the game of trying to follow people around. I went down to take a photograph of the Tower Bridge. And in my old hack world, I wouldn't want people there. Because you saw all the photographs of the landscape and there weren't people there. Now everywhere I go, I want people. Why? Because people are everywhere. And to me, the idea of scale the idea of the presence of humans. And they just appeared, and it was wonderful. I love movement, I love motion, I love slow shutter speed. One of my heroes was Keith Carter. Who's heard of Keith Carter? Sort of anybody? Man, he's an amazing black and white photographer. He shoots medium format. He has a tilt shift lens. He does selective focus. And Keith Carter said, blur is just as much a part of photography as sharp. The problem is as a young student, I had a lot of images that were just kind of out of focus and not that good. No, it's the intentional blur. It's the intentional capture of movement, because this world is constantly moving. Now, here's my friend Gallo, and by the way, he's a paparazzi. He photographed Jennifer Lopez with her brand new baby in the backyard of her house in LA, and got the image the day before People magazine published the image. And they paid him, I think, 60 grand not to sell the photograph. He photographed Lamar Odom in the hospital in Vegas after he had spent a little bit too much time with the Bunny Ranch with one of the Kardashians. That's my former student Gallo. He's given that world up, by the way. And Gallo is here is demonstrating the panning technique. This is one of the hardest things to do, and I can tell you the first time I did it out of Willow Springs, most of the times the motorcycles went by at 200 miles an hour, there was nothing in my frames. It was blank frames. It's been blank frames. One of the things I have in my camera bag is I always have a couple neutral density filters. And I typically will take a 5-stop neutral density filter. So since I'm shooting blurry photographs, it doesn't have to be a good one. It costs about $20. You know, that's what? Oh, a lunch at the Habit. Give my wife there $3 for 2 cameras. I could have gotten a neutral density filter. A neutral density filter, my number one is the 5-stop neutral density filter. And what I've written is on the right-hand side, if it's a sunny 16 rule, I can use that 5-stop neutral density filter, and I can shoot at a 1/6 of a second. That means in full sun, with that cheap fast filter, I can slow my shutter speed down to a 1/6. That's why I love taking photographs like this. To me, this is what it's like to be in the city. And this was the series that I took. I was photographing this cab. I didn't even know this dude walked in front of me. But when you're in the doldrums of photography, there's nothing to photograph. Get the neutral density filter out and play. I remember as a kid, I wanted to go to a parade when they were a teenager and they hated it. I was like, my father's in the military. It's like, oh my God, we gotta go to another parade. Nowadays, I want to go to a parade. I want to bring neutral density filters. I want to do slow shutter speeds. I look for parades. I went down to the Pride Parade in Los Angeles. Neutral density filter day, all because it's a time to create something that nobody else has. Because here's the challenge. We're all gonna go someplace. And probably 95% of all our images, where's the next place you go? Where's the next place your group's going? The Aquarium of the Pacific. Okay, I'd love to go, by the way. I will photograph anything. And if you pay me, I'll really photograph them. But when we go, about 95% of all our images, the same. But somebody's gonna get an image that you're gonna go, where did you go? How come I didn't get one of those photographs? I wish I'd thought of that. Now, that's one of the great things teaching, is you can steal their idea. But to me, creating work, not just taking a photograph, the idea of taking, but creating something, going beyond just the objective look, but try to put the you into it. Try to make it look like, oh, I didn't do that picture. That's Andrew's picture, because Andrew takes pictures like that. And that's hard. That's a lot of work. You really have to use your brain power. So I'll go and stand on the street corner and I'll just take series of photographs over and over and over and over again. Fill the street. Remember, when I put that 512 gig card in a 24 megapixel camera, it just says 9999. That's not it. I don't know how many photographs. I've never filled it up. It's too scary, right? But if film's free, it's up to you to go create. To me, I think that's interesting. You might not think it's interesting, but I'm always trying to go beyond where I've been. I love motion. I love blur. And that's just one of the things. I'll go to Tour de France. Every one of my photographs is blurry. I'll go to the Ring Concert Festival 2 days, 20,000 images. Everyone, slow shutter speed, blurry. Why? Because there's 100,000 other images of everything sharp and they all look the same. Trying to find a different way of looking at this world. I mean, come on. Isn't that not cool?
Yeah.
How about that? It's different. It's unique. It's easy and it's plain. It's just playing with the camera. I just sit down watching sunsets and belly dancers came by. And they perform, and I'm like, slow shutters, blindly. So I'll always have a neutral density filter in my camera bag, but I can also tell you that I've missed a lot of really good images because I was trying to take stupid blurry photos. So I always say, cover your ass. In other words, try it from both approaches. Try a sharp one, try a blurry one. That way you have both. And let me tell you, I love double-decker buses, and I got a lot of blurry photographs of double-decker buses. I don't know if any of them are any good, but they excite me. Because to me, this going out and photographing, that is a rush. I'll do it. If I have to take somebody to a museum, I'm there. I got my camera. If I have to take you anywhere, I'll go there, but I'll have my camera. Camera is just gonna be with me to help me see the world. This is interesting because we always talk about composition. We always talk about the rule of thirds, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, the figure ground, all the different rules of composition. And I love this quote. It says, now to consult the rules of composition before making a picture is a little like consulting the law of gravitation before going for a walk. Such rules and laws are deduced from the accomplished fact. They are the products of reflection. And knowing and understanding the rules of composition are helpful. But they're not the rule. They're not the rule at all. I love going out and finding the spot. And I've had some of you as students in the street photography world, we call it fishing. Now you go to a fishing hole, and here I found a corner. And I hung out at this corner and I just waited to see what happened. In other words, I liked the background, I liked the way the light was coming down the street. I was able to hide behind the little corner and I just waited for things to happen. And I'll do this over and over and over. I'll go find an interesting background and then I'll see if anything materializes. If it doesn't, it's time to move on. One of my favorite places to go. Hey, you had a question, Andrew?
Go back to that one, please. Where are you metering there? Because you have such a wide latitude between the deep shadows and you've got bright sunlight in there.
Okay, so if you go all the way back to like 20th slide, both the cameras that I use right now have a good 14 stop dynamic range. Putting the camera in aperture priority, and letting her go, no problem. The highlights are retained and the shadows are lifted, in post. And I used to have some cameras that I had to give about plus a third EV. But pretty much, one of them, I shoot the Leica Q3, and it actually has a Panasonic sensor, and then the Sony is actually a Sony sensor. And both of them, the dynamic range is something that I couldn't have dreamt of before. Back when we had, I had a Canon 1DX, and it had a nine stop dynamic range. The difference between 9 stops and 14 stops. Not only is it significant, a friend of mine, Rob Clevenger, he went out to do a grip and grin event, and he took his on-camera flash. And when he came back, he goes, "Oh, see, I understand, Chris, we don't need the city." Because now, I just read that I think it's Apple has a sensor that captures 20 stops. Now, we can only see 21. And that's if we're good. So if we have a 20 stop dynamic range sensor and then we can map it back to where we want it, game's over, I don't have images that are out of focus. I don't have images that have missed exposure. Now, I do know how to look at a scene, and if I'm fishing, in other words, if I'm camped out here in the corner, I might take a picture and look at the histogram in the preview to make sure that I don't need to give a little bit of bias, but most of the time it's just aperture priority. And pretty much any Canon, Nikon, or Sony should be able to do that, no problem. I come from my first full frame my daughter's 21 in 10 days. 21 years ago, I bought my first full frame digital camera. It was a Canon 1DS. It was a 11 megapixel. Cost $7,999, and if we shot it at 400 ISO, the grain was not tolerable. And if you underexposed at one stop, the noise was it was horrible. Nowadays, with the current generation sensors, just take pictures. Don't worry about it. I mean, it used to expose to the right, all about expose to the right, pull the highlights down. You just go take pictures. And to me, with the eye autofocus and the way it can grab a subject, I can shoot a whole wedding with a 35 1.4 and 85 1.4 all wide open, and they're all in focus. Everyone. Don't have to think about focusing. But learning how to use that autofocus, that's hard. I sat in front of a television and practiced on talking heads, news programs, practicing autofocus on the eye. And going on the street here, practicing autofocus is key, because these things are moving, and knowing when to turn autofocus off. Like in the panning shots, I'm focusing on the street where the car is going to be. I turn autofocus off and just take pictures, because autofocus can't track those panning subjects. I love silhouettes. When I was young, I never photographed things that are backlit. It was horrible. Now I love the backlight. And it's because we have this dynamic range that I can photograph the outside and lift the shadows. So I'll go look for this. I love playing with shapes in the museum. I mean, juxtaposition of her in front of this statue. How much fun is that? And then I get to go to an art museum. Oh no, Big Ben. The Thames. You want to pay me to go there?
Do you ever shoot black and white anymore with the film camera?
I do.
Okay.
I still have 2 Fuji 6x9s. I processed a roll of black and white film today in the lab. I still have I used to lecture for Hasselblad, so I have a Hasselblad from a 50 to a 250, and I've got the 60 and the 100 and the 180 and 250. I still shoot film when it's needed. But I'll go to London for 3 weeks and shoot 35,000 photographs. I can't do that on film. But I'll go shoot some landscapes with black and white film. Absolutely. I love film. But film is a tool. And I don't get attached to tools because, it's just the tool. I'm attached to what am I able to create? What do I have in my mind? I don't want to go photograph Big Ben. I want to photograph people looking at Big Ben. I want to photograph humanity. The other thing is that I've really refined my scene, meaning where am I placing this camera in the world? And these images are so subtle. If you look in the upper right-hand photograph, you see how the bridge of his nose is cut into the back. And then if you look at the photograph on the lower left, you see a person on the right-hand side walking into the frame. And now I'm more interested in composition, and I'm really interested in leveraging what I call figure ground. In painting, in art, they typically talk about the figure, which is the subject, and everything else, which is the ground or the background. And it's a Gestalt psychology. It's how we see, we identify the figure. And when I was a student, people say, "Oh, you have a busy back." Who's heard that, right? Your background is busy. That's amateur speak. Pro speak is you haven't optimized your figure ground. That's how we talk about it in art. And this is just a prime example. This is my friend's apartment in Paris, and it's about a foot wide. And our brain sees what's on the left. What really was happening was what was on the right. And I don't think, and Mauricio can attest to this, I'll give the students a portrait of a friend to sign. That's going to be the first time they go out and photograph a person. They will do the best job of putting a tree, a telephone wire, or a pole coming out of somebody's head. That you could, if you gave them that assignment, it would be as good as they do. Because we don't think about that. When I photograph, I pay attention to the background first. Because if the background doesn't work, it doesn't matter what subject they have. So being able to pay attention to the background while you're shooting is something that you have to learn. I mean, when I was in Paris when France won the World Cup, and I called my friend whose wife's Francoise is Parisian, and I'm like, "Jonathan, like in LA, they'll have the Lakers parade the next day. Are they gonna have a parade?" He's like, "No, go right now to the Arc de Triomphe." And it was amazing. It got very scary. I left. France shut down all mass transit. Everything shut down. I walked all the way across the city at night to get home. But being there, I saw these people climb up the pole. I had to get the Arc de Triomphe because that's the symbol. But they had to be where they are. They couldn't overlap. So optimizing where the camera was to create the image was what was important. Now I did this in color too, because blue was their national team and most of the people were wearing blue, but their cars were on fire, motorcycles were going through that crowd. You can't see it. It was insane. I love this quote. You have to be lost to find a place that can't be found. And I steal from Pirates of the Caribbean. And to me, just go wander and discover something for yourself. When you discover it, it's so rewarding. I've only been to India once, and I'd love to go back. And I always told myself, if I ever went back to India, I would get a Lonely Planet. Now, they don't have those anymore. You guys remember the Lonely Planet? The little guidebooks? I would get the Lonely Planet, and I would only go to places that aren't in the book. Because I want to go discover something for myself. Yes.
You can find the Lonely Planet books in eBay.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
I know. It's very sad. It's very sad because it was like the gospel, right? But to me, just go someplace that you've never been with no idea what you're gonna see, and just open your eyes. And it's fun because if you're there to create whatever you come upon, you're going to create. I shot that from the top of Notre Dame before it caught on fire. And if you ever have an opportunity to go up and then walk around the top. I cheated and I pretended I just kept walking around the top, like I was in the next tour group, because I just want to take pictures. I enjoy trying to, play with scale. There was this little guy sitting on the curb of this giant, row houses in London. And I was reminded of the work of Eugene Auger. Auger was the photographer of Paris before it was torn down, and he never photographed into something. He always went off at an oblique angle. And my OCD likes to look straight into things. I'm like, okay, Auger would never photograph this. Walk off to the side and have fun with the diagonal. Shooting sequences. And here I saw these young people and they were in a store, and I knew they were going to come out, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew as they were going to come out. And this is the image that I ended up liking, because the girl on the ground, she was talking on her phone, the guy is smiling, and to me, this is just the anticipation of what's going to happen. And a lot of things I'm not showing you because what I anticipated wasn't going to happen. It didn't happen. But you can't see it and try to photograph it because it's already gone. You got to anticipate it, set up for it, and wait. And by doing that, by the way, I saw them in the store. I knew they were coming out. I had already set up. I already had my camera. And then they came into my space. And when they came into my space, my camera was already out. I didn't lift it up. I didn't go to take their picture. So it's a very different photographer-subject relationship. And a lot of times I get people that duck, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, it was great. It's like, you were the photograph. I don't say that, but I'm like, no, I wish you had done that. But if you pull the camera up, people will notice it. My camera's out. They're coming out of the store, and there's like, oh, there's a guy there with the camera. And I'll pretend like I'm looking at the sign, or I'm looking at my watch, or it's believe me, it's very easy to make people think you're doing something else. I love photography on the metro. It's weird. I could ride them all day, every day, and never get off them. In fact, one day I was in London and I got on the train and I it was fun. And I photographed all the way to the airport. Then I'm going for this, so I went to a side tracks for it all the way back. And didn't even get charged for it because I didn't get off the train. But when you're on the train, people get on. Again, it's my space. My camera's out. Play with my camera. You're coming into my area. Oh, he already has the camera on? Well, he must just play around with his menus. No, I'm taking your picture. I'm taking your picture. I love silhouettes. I love silhouettes. I see silhouettes. My brain thinks silhouettes. And you know the story of the word silhouette? Oh, I have to tell you. And a little bit of this is urban myth, but it's legit. The French finance minister, who was taxing all the people, right? Because France was fighting all those different wars. His favorite pastime was cutting shades. We've all been to Disneyland. We've all seen the person cutting shades. You don't call them shades. And the people said, you've taxed us to death. All that's left is our shadow, Monsieur Silhouette. What was his name? I love silhouettes. I love how you could create a really strong figure ground, right? Because the figures are easy to see. And when you highlight it against the background, and look at the dynamic range of that sensor. It's there. It is 100% there. I love looking at my files, and I love processing my files. I told Andrew when I did this, I was going to go do all these images, and I was going to create images of stuff that nobody's ever seen. I got a third of the way through my images. So there's not as much as I'd hope to show you, but there's a lot. I meet a lot of people. I make a lot of friends. If I take somebody's photograph and they show interest, I'll share it with them on Instagram. I'll text it to them, by all means. And then the most important thing, I'll ask them if they know if there's anything cool to photograph. I asked the street artist, I said, you know, this is pretty cool. Is there any place, oh, this is filthy. Okay, you gotta go here. So again, trying to talk to people, and using photography as the leverage because people are interested. I tend to be a very solitary person when I'm out photographing. I'm rather quiet, I'm not intrusive. I'm kind of like a spy, just going around looking for interesting things. And that's, and it's so much fun to just go out and take photographs. This is in, there's a passageway in Paris, I'm sorry, in London, it's on the way to Brick Lane, that it's kind of like this open area where they're allowed to spray paint, there's some Banksies, young people hang out there. Old people like me can go there and take pictures of people don't care. People don't care. I love light. You know, I saw that shaft of light coming through there, and I'm like, oh, light. And this guy just walked in. Okay, let's take a picture. And by the way, this is the only vertical in the presentation. I don't like verticals. Some people only shoot verticals. I don't see the world as verticals. I also don't see the world of telephoto lenses. I have telephoto lenses, but most of the stuff I shoot is relatively wide, from 35 to about, on a full frame from like 35 to 15 or so. I love looking into the light. I love hiding behind things. In other words, I'll find a street light and I'll put the sun right behind it so I can shoot straight into the sun. But I'll use the street light or the street sign, and you'll notice I'm shooting straight into the sun, yet I think I'm hiding the sun behind the edge of that building, and that's St. Paul's in the background. It's important if you are in locations to try to include something that is universal to anywhere anybody's ever been. You know, you stick that Eiffel Tower in there, you stick that Arc de Triomphe, you stick St. Paul's. You can cement that image in the audience's kind of legend of where we are. The first time I was in Paris, I was all pissed off because they had smart cars and the cars were ugly colors and I'm like, oh, there's Prius. I heard Prius. But I'm like, it's not romantic like I thought it was. But then I remembered what Walker Evans said. Walker Evans said, when you take a photograph, try to look through time. And what he was saying is that the photograph that you see today is gonna be really cool when you add a little bit of time to it. Because we'll have hover cars and we'll all ride self-balancing unicycles and everything will be drones. But as we add time, the clothes change, the cars change, the architecture, at least in most of these places, it is gonna stay the same. Do you see that foot in the background?
Yeah.
And you know, look, my screen is so much sharper than yours. That actually sucks. And you didn't tell me that there was what is that?
I don't know.
That's that now. Oh my God. It was on the art. And you didn't tell me. No, not my thing. My thing doesn't. I love using the gallery as a compositional play, right? I mean, I have this painting, I have a person. How can I work with that? How can I look at humanity? Oh my God, storefronts at night. I went back to them every day. They're so cool. You just stand there and notice we got the sign of Brick Lane. You've been in Brick Lane? You know why it's called Brick Lane? Where they brought the bricks into the city to develop London. Brick Lane. It's becoming gentrified, so you gotta go quick or it's gonna be hoity-toity. Right? Same storefront, different night. I love the idea of putting wheelchairs, baby carriages, people with walkers, anything to show diversity and humanity. I love trying to find them. that behind him? Oh, that's the tunnel that smells like urine, but it's got a good silhouette. I enjoy seeing how people build personal space around themselves. I mean, I photographed like 30 people waiting for a tram or metro, and they're all like 2.5 feet apart. It's like somebody put this magic, like where you guys are sitting right now, in this little bubble. It's fun. And as the city gets busier and busier, the bubble gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Again, photographing into the light. And I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for something to come into my subject, an interesting person. And I'll just hang out there for a couple minutes. You know. There are many other forms of photography, essentially, wait, how many other forms of photography essentially have wonder at their heart? That's what makes street photography almost a spiritual process for many because it is so personal and so akin to a kind of photographic enlightenment. Now, how did I get the photography this from the landscape photographs that I showed you? I'll tell you. The first time we took 20 students to Paris for 15 weeks. My boss goes, Chris, would you, take some students to Paris? Would you go all summer? Do you have got your wife? I'll go. I took my film cameras. I took a Hasselblad, I took a Fuji 6x9, and I tried to go and photograph landscapes. I tried to go to Versailles. I tried to go up at a place called Parc Saint Cloud, which has Age's topiary trees. I tried to go photograph the landscape, and it wasn't there. But what was there was people. And I'm like, I've been to Utah, and I took Galen Metz, I took John Mahaffey, I took a couple other people from Kodak, and I took them to Monument Valley, Arches, the Canyonlands, and the Four Corners, and it was the weekend of the OJ freeway chase because I listened to it on the radio as I'm driving. That gives you the time frame, okay? We got to Monument Valley, and they had something called a Utah High. What that meant was for 10 days, there wasn't a single cloud for 1,000 miles. And all I could think of was Monument Valley with clouds, Canyonlands with clouds, Arches with clouds. I couldn't photograph. I was like, if I had these preconceived ideas, the same thing that happened to me when I went to Paris. But then I went, when Paris is known for Henri Cartier-Bresson and the birth of street photography. I'm a photographer. I just have to think a little bit different. And I literally just switched gears and I fell in love with not street photography, but fell in love with photography. Because I got to take pictures, I got to challenge myself, I got to go places I hadn't been. It made me think about composition, it made me think about the frame, it made me think about what am I trying to say, and that is what really got my creative juices going. Now, my wife's like, can we go to the Rose Bowl flea market? I'm like, absolutely. I don't want to buy anything. I want to photograph people. Can we go to the Getty Museum? Absolutely. Photograph people. My wife's like, do you always take your camera everywhere? And I'm like, how long have you known me? Oh, yes. Now, if the camera gods or the spirits don't make you take pictures, at least try to think about how would I do this creatively? And here's how I challenged myself. I was doing a Zoom presentation from London back to the United States because there were some students that couldn't come. And I'm like, okay, you have 30 minutes, go photograph your block. I walked downstairs and I made images completely around the block of everything as creatively as I could. hadn't taken a single picture on the block I was living on in London. And I loved all the images because I went out and I approached it like a job. Like it was something that I had to do. I had to work at it. Photography is work. It makes you think, how cool is that fake tobacco album? How many things are going on in here, right? But I still have to think about the size of the images. I still have to think about the textual things that are in the sign. I'm trying to think like a photographer and create an image. I have this image in color too at night. It's kind of fun. But I want it to be true, right? Find storefronts, get people. How can I show some interesting thing? Oh, there's that motion blur, but I didn't have to have a neutral density because it's at night. You get that free low light neutral density. I love people looking at paintings. The Louvre, there's a couple paintings in the Louvre where kids walk up, they giggle and they cover their mouth. And I teach a history of art class, and one of the funny things is when I didn't know anything, like, man, you know, in the 1800s, people had naked paintings, people all over the walls. What's going on? And then I found out some of these paintings were like in the king's dirty painting room. So only one person in the whole country could ever see it. It was like this little porn collection. And now they're on gallery walls and they're like, oh, so that wasn't designed to be hanging in the main square. But it's fun to look at art and juxtapose it so that people looking at the art. And plus, you get to go to the museums, right? Go to the Getty, go to the UCLA Hammer Museum, go to LACMA, go to the Peterson's Art Museum. Take your camera and create photographs. I mean, come on, all these heads, looking at all the heads. How fun is that? The beautiful thing about silent shutter is that you don't intrude into these people's spaces. You know, my 1DX, no matter how beautiful the sound it used to make, and it did make a beautiful sound. If you fired that in here, everybody would turn around and give you a stink eye instantaneously. Like, come on, you're in the Church of Art. What are you doing? I mean, come on, she's just standing there, put her hands on her hips. I'm like, that's a fun photograph, right? I don't know what I think she's judging those people, right? What are you men doing? Probably bad things. And man, when you find somebody who's into a painting, it is a lot of fun. I mean, I've had people like, they'll get up really close, they'll turn their heads, they'll squat down. And I'm like, that is so much fun to photograph because they're just lost. And I'm lost too. I had fun. Do you see their feet? I had the privilege last year. Do you know who one of the largest collectors of photography is in the world who sings Goodbye Elvis Road? Did you know Elton John is one of the largest photo collectors in the world? And at the Victoria Albert Museum, it's the Elton John collection. He had every image, and they were all from about the 1960s, the very early Beatles photographs. All of the top name photographs, all the contemporary work, and it was stunning. And here they had the portraits and they had space glow, so I was playing with the legs, giving those the substitute legs. I love guards when they fall asleep. And when people fall asleep in the museum, it's called museum coma, and I will bounce on your ass and take a picture if you fall asleep in the museum. And if you're a guard, you're dead. I've got so many photographs of guards there. So. I got it there twice. This is of course the Andy Warhol Basquiat exhibit. Anybody watch the Andy Warhol 3-part documentary on Netflix? You should put it. It's good. And at first when I watched it, I'm like, man, the narration sucks. And then I read, oh, they used AI and they used Andy Warhol's voice to narrate the movie. And that's his speech speed. So then I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand. But, this was they got the show back together. They put most of the images that were in the original show. This is the images for the Warhol Basquiat exhibit. And you know, Basquiat, the American artist, the most valuable painting ever sold by an American artist was a Basquiat. There's that, did you know Degas was a photographer?
Hmm.
And Degas painted from his photographs. Degas also, if you look at his paintings, learned the unsharp mask before we did. Because he would put the black halo paint around his figures and create that sharp edge. I'm like, oh, very good. Look at that space. Isn't that fun? It's just a photograph of space. Plain, where do we put her? Put her. She stood in front of the only round painting in the room. Gotta take that picture. Gotta take that picture. I love photographing people, finding interesting, distinguished looking people. Look at that kid. But the metro is such a glorious place to take pictures of people because we're so crammed in there. Yeah. Humanity. ATMs. That's a tough ATM. I don't know if I'd take my money out there. Free withdrawals, right? I love storefront displays. I love when people stand in front of storefront displays, and I love to pose them in front of what's behind them, and they don't know. It's so much fun. Look at his face. He's mad at those sexy models that are in the window.
It's kind of cool that you've got sunglasses. I know they are.
Do you think she's gonna buy a purse or what? Look at the advertising. Isn't that fun? And but, you know, this is one of those times that I found an interesting background, and then an interesting person just happened to walk in front. Now, I might have waited there for like 5 minutes, and you didn't get to see the 10 other uninteresting people. Yeah, right? Storefront, mannequins, people glued to their kryptonite. And what's gonna happen? Chris is gonna come up and take a picture. And nobody ever knows. Nobody ever. Now, I didn't realize that this guy saw me. But what's he gonna do? We're all in that can, going underground. But it just has that little melancholy look, like, yeah, we're in here. It's interesting, the people that you see and the people that you meet. I've actually never ever met anybody that didn't like me, to taking pictures. So get your camera out there, take photographs. And one of the most important things to do is look for protests, look for parades, look for demonstrations. And it just happened. I'm walking across the bridge, and all of a sudden these people with not a lot of clothes started holding up signs, and I'm like, they're there to be seen. I'm a photographer. I'm gonna take your picture. And I think this was the veganism, right? What does it say? Kindness. Photographers go towards bad weather, right? In other words, find the event. Find the event. And the reason I like to find the event is because the people that are observing the event aren't paying attention to the person taking the pictures. Photography to the amateur is recreation. To the professional is work, and hard work too, no matter how pleasurable it may be. When I went and photographed all day Saturday and Sunday by myself in the studio, I'm like, I still can't believe people pay me to do it. Don't tell anybody. I like signs. We're getting shit faced. Who's getting shit faced? Is it the couple on the right? Maybe. Guys hanging out in front of their bazaars. You know, it's so much fun if you just go up and talk to somebody. Believe it or not, they're nice humans too. They're not afraid. Most, oh my God, when you find street chess going on, the characters that you can see, look at that guy in the background. It's like, I don't know if I do that. But be careful, because if you ever go disrupt their concentration, they will shoot you the stink eye. And one time I made a little bit of noise and I got kicked out of that one. So now I'll go and I'll observe. I'll get a little bit closer. Get a little bit closer. Get a little bit closer. Sneak in. And once you're in, carte blanche. And this was great because this guy would challenge anybody on the street and he would play like 5 games at once. And it was fun to watch and it was fun to photograph. He caught me taking this picture afterwards. And I'm like, dude, you are so beautiful. And he told me he worked for this guy and he's selling these shirts. And I took a picture of him smiling afterwards, but he was just kind of lost in thought there amongst the leather jacket. I love juxtaposing people against background. See, they didn't even know those 2 people that were in the doorway, and there were 2 people outside the doorway. Fine, fun. Does anybody know what fly tippers are?
Let's see.
See the sign? Well, you can't. It says fly tippers could face an unlimited fine and 5 years in. I was looking everywhere for fly tippers. I think it's leaving your trash, but I don't know. But how much fun is that to have a picture that has fly tippers? To me, finding the sign and waiting to find people in the background. A lot of these photographs I created because it reminds me of images. The Henri Cartier son of England, his name is Bill Brandt. You should study Bill Brandt's work. And Bill Brandt is a photograph looking up Cobblestone Street with a vanishing point. What is that? Cobblestone Street, vanishing point. If it's good for Bill, I'll give it a try. I just happen to have 2 people and 2 pigeons. It's a little bit different, right? When I go out and photograph, does anybody like to go fly fishing in here? I'm an avid fly fisherman. And the thing about fly fishing is it's not called fly catching. It's called fly fishing. And it's the pursuit. And to me, it's I just gotta get one more. I just gotta get one more. I gotta get a better one. I gotta get one with a sign. I got to sign with 1 guy, and I got to get a sign with 2 guys. And I got to sign with 2 guys. Now they got to be sharing food, and I got to get closer. And I got to get a sign and people, and I got to get a bus. And that's how my brain thinks. In other words, I'll get one, and then I'll try to build upon the idea. So you'll see the same idea, and that is the bridge. That's right behind. This is in Camden. It's a great place to go, and it's like a photographer's heaven. There's people. There's buses, and when you have bridges, that's cool. Archways, silhouettes. Oh my God, there's the buses. I can't have enough of these double-decker buses. This is the last image. I processed this image last night at midnight because a friend of mine said, Chris, I really like to see the British storefronts, and this is your local. And it's just got a bunch of the same crap we have in front of ours. But it's different, it's unique. It's unique. Working with layers. We've all taken photographs of landscapes. I love landscapes. The first thing I did was I went to the top of the mountain and took a picture of the thing on the other side of the valley, where everything is a background plane. Working with layers, meaning here we have a woman in the foreground layer, and then we have something in the background. You can't just have everything at infinity. We need to build depth within images. And I could do this all day. I can sit down, I can wait for the next train gets off, people get off, and I can play. I can play with shutter speeds, and I can play with angles of view. And I don't know if it's gonna be good, but I gotta try. I gotta try. Sometimes I think the images are too blurry. The British Food Company. I went in there and I'm like, you have the most beautiful storefront. And he's like, yeah, our dad started it like 60 years ago, and I got to talk to him, I took his picture, I took his portrait, I bought some shoelaces for my daughter. I went back the next day and I told him, I said, can I take some more pictures of your store? He said, "What? Of course. I think the fun thing that I've learned is if you want to be interesting, be interested. And the second I told him that I loved the store and I wanted to buy some shoelaces for my daughter, he told me the whole history of the store. He gave me 2 postcards to give to my daughter of her store history. And it's the, it's a little insight that it's that little window that he can also, you should come back on this day. And I'm like, why? He says, well, because all these shops are going to be open and it's going to be a very different place. So seeking as much local information as possible. And every time the one thing you might have seen is my cameras all have wrist straps. I cannot function with neck straps. Now, if I'm going to shoot an event, I have 2 shoulder slings. I have a black racket with shoulder string, but if I put a camera around my neck, it gets twisted, and then I get my hand in it, and then I can't do it. I found that wrist straps work really good. So I'll keep my camera out most of the time, attached to my wrist down low. So when I get on the train, I'm not taking a camera out. I have a camera, because if you take a camera out, people are like, what's going on? But if you have a camera out, they're just playing with it, and everybody's playing with their freaking phone. Play with your camera like you're looking at the images, and you're not taking pictures. Yeah. You never know. Every once in a while, I saw this guy and he walked by and then I chased him and said, man, you look nice. People appreciate that. People do. I love staying in these street corners, seeing what comes around the corner. Guys, he was big. He's nice. He's nice. I've only been to London twice recently. And every time I go any place, I get a little bit more adventurous. I need to feel the place out because I'm out by myself. And yes, I can speak English. It's a little bit different being out in Paris, but I won't just willy-nilly go anywhere. I'll stay out till it's like 6 o'clock, and then I'll stay out till it's like 7 o'clock. Then I'll stay out till it's like 8 o'clock. I don't want to feel unsafe. Because I do have cameras, if somebody's gonna rob me, I'm gonna give them my camera. I just want my memory cards in all honesty. I have insurance, I bought cameras to take pictures of, but I like nighttime photographs and I'm getting a little bit more brazen going out at night. I have no problem walking up and down Hollywood Boulevard at 11 o'clock at night, which is the first time I ever did this scary and shit. It's like the same people, but in a new environment, and I started going out and this woman was walking her dogs, and it's like, did I give you 2 of them? Oh, I only gave you 1. I got a couple shots of her, and it's like, and then she walked across the street, but I missed it. And it's just like, oh, it was so much fun. It was getting dark. I think the guy was a murderer. I mean, you can't see, but he's got a murder on his shirt, and he really looks like Edgar Allan Poe. I love making up stories, right? I love looking at people and trying to think of narratives for them. And this is the Piccadilly Circus, and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. I said, what are they gonna do when they get rid of the phone booths? And so it said, they can't, because where will Superman change? There's still a lot of phone booths around London, but they're no longer, I think there were some ATMs in one, but they are iconic, and he's got the phone in his hand. I thought it was kind of fun. How did I get to them? You don't know, late last night, you get ATM twice, sorry. See the people in their own personal space? They're just all like strutting a pose. The guy in the middle is just, he's tired. He's ready to go home. Hollywood Boulevard. I love the wig store, by the way. I juxtapose where people gets the wig store. Because when I teach in Hollywood, Mount St. Mary's, our film class is our film school is right across the street from the Chinese Van Theater. That means I have a parking spot. That means I walk from Chinese Van Theater all the way down to Viva Records and back 4 times every time I teach. Because do it at lunch and we do it at night. And to me, to really get to know a place, you've got to go there more than once. And I go to the same place over and over until I get a really good feel of what it looks. And then I might go to someplace else. You know, if I go someplace just one time and I get a shot, I consider myself really, really lucky. But go to the same place, you know, Hollywood Boulevard. Did you know there's a Taco Bell on that block that you can get beer and margaritas in a Taco Bell? Yes, but it's called a Taco Bell Cantina. It's right across the street from the Egyptian. It's a great place to go at night, take photographs. There's the Roosevelt Hotel, and that dark building on the left is where the film studios are for Mount St. Mary's, and that's where I teach. And when it comes out at night, it's a great place to go photograph people. People. By the way, when they set up the barricades, you just walk on the other side and take pictures of people there. And you're like, you look at the police, take the camera out. I'm a photographer. Go ahead. If you wear a hat, that's when you get the free pass. You gotta wear the hat. You don't have a hat, they'll get back. I've never ever had the police say don't do that. I'll actually go ask them. Check this guy out. This is the devil. It was awesome. I wanted him to play it. A lot of fun stuff goes on in Hollywood. The first time I went down there, I was scared. Like, this is way more scary. Every time I go photograph that window and the people that walk by. Playing with reflections is one of the prompts that I always try to work on.
Are you inside the store?
No, you know how they have some of the storefront
Yeah.
walkways in, so you see it two-sided? So I'm actually inside looking back at the street. And they have the same storefronts in Bozeman, Montana. I'll walk in Bozeman, Montana when there's snow. Same kind of old storefront windows that you can look at the people through the windows and then juxtapose what's ever in the windows in front of them. In front of them. I love advertising. Look, they got their own personal spot. Edgewater Road, okay, London Underground. Uh-oh, that got in there twice. I was tired. Ooh, that got in there twice too. Gotta get those flags up in the sky. Gotta fill that sky. You know, it's interesting. I'm not a documentary or journalist. I'm just interested in photographing people. It might be a little bit documentary, but to me, it's people, and the people are showing me everything. And to me, I find that exciting. I'll go photograph both sides. I have no skin in the game, yet am part of the human race. Yes, and I do. I think it's horrible what's going on in this world, but I want to photograph people, and people with emotion, right? And look who I found. I found George Michael. And then the guy that had a beard. It was just too much fun. It was just too much fun. Now, what I haven't shown you is all the hundreds of self-portraits. Everywhere I go, I do self-portraits. Here I am. Look at it. I got a hat. I got my cross-shoulder camera strap on, and I'm in the London Underground. This is at the Westminster Station. There's some street art in Camden Town. To me, I did an Instagram post recently, and I don't post on Instagram that much, but I like history. I teach a history of photography class. And there's a famous photograph that Louis Hine did on the streets of a paper boy. And Lewis Hine put himself, his shadow, and a 4x5 view camera in the foreground, 100% intentional. Michelangelo painted himself in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Caravaggio used his head as the severed head for his David and Goliath painting. Put yourself in your images. And there's just a couple of me. I love this quote. This is a quote by Patti Smith, Robert Mapplethorpe's girlfriend at one time. And it says, "My camera's my friend and I take it everywhere." And that's a portrait I did of my dad, who's 92. And I just thought I'd finish with that image. Let's turn on the lights and maybe you'll have a question if I didn't kill you. Did I talk too much?
That's a rhetorical.
Any question?
Yeah. When you're out there and, I think it comes up a lot where, are you, if you're a user picture, you have to have a release on all the.
Okay, so the question was, do I have to have a release? First of all, in the United States, where the photograph was in Hollywood, anytime you take a photograph from any public space, there is no expectation of privacy. You can take a photograph of anything. Now, I'm not telling you to go to the children's park and take pictures of kids, but it's totally legal. And by the way, you can put an 800mm lens on your camera, stand on the sidewalk and take a picture of somebody's bedroom if you want to. 100% legal. I would never do that. Would never do that. I would never be interested in disparaging anybody. And if you didn't see any pictures of homeless people, because I'm not there to take pictures of people when they're down on their luck. I'm just interested in taking photographs of humanity. I think people are funny and they're beautiful. All people are funny and beautiful. And I'll poke fun at everybody. Sell them. That you do have to have a model release. Anytime you use the image commercially, meaning if you wanted to use it for a shoe advertisement, you would have to have permission from everybody in the single photograph. Now, that's the United States. There are some countries in this world where you do have to get permission from every single person in the frame. Now, that's not France and that's not England. France does have a rule about having written permission. You know, the country that birthed street photography does have a law. It's not necessarily enforced, even though I do know Peter Turnley. Peter Turnley is a photographer. He lives in Paris and he did have a show of, and that had people in it that people found out. And there was a settlement, but how much it was, I don't know. You can't photograph police, you can't photograph military on the streets of France. I photographed bodies in London and there didn't seem to be an issue about photographing the police there. Using the images as editorial use or for fine art, it's pretty much okay. Yeah, guys don't go to take pictures of kids. Yeah. Now, I was taking photo, there was the, you know where they shoot, put you in a chair and they shoot you, or they put you in a ball and they shoot you up in the air by a bungee cord. I was at at the Tuileries Garden every summer, there's a big carnival. And there was a little kid, and when they would shoot it up, he would go. And I waited and I photographed it and some parents saw me. And I go, and I showed them the camera. I showed them what I was doing. And I said, this is beautiful. And they smiled and they understood. But for some reason now, you take photographs of children is bad. Ladies, go shoot away. You get a free pass. But there's too many other things to go photograph than those things. But that's happened. Any other fun questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, snippet on the internet about a documentary about Tom. I think I'm gonna stage doing your research. He's an older gentleman, Manhattan, walks up to complete strangers with flashing.
Chris Gilden, that was the first one, yeah, he's in your face, yeah,
Get quick.
he's, big.
Big.
He's, a big guy.
He's a good guy. Oh,
Yeah, but he's from New York. And when you see him do it, it happens so. I don't do those kind of photographs, but somebody did a photograph on me like that. And as I'm walking, the Leica came up like this, and then it went like this, and I'm like, I think I just had a picture ticket. And it was so fast, and it was so smooth, and I saw it, and I didn't even know it happened. So it happens so fast when he does it. A lot of people don't know it, but my hero, Joel Meyerowitz, hates him because he's an in-your-face, confrontational photographer. But that's his look, and that's fine. You know, he's probably been beat up every once in a while. Well, you know, his work is really good. I've seen, they had a show of his at Picto, which is a big lab in Paris a couple of years ago, and they had a lot of images. And it's great, you know, it's in your face, it's raw, it's
Spot like deer in the head.
it's confronting, exactly. And it's usually people that are like,
That's.
and you know what? We all looked at him. Well, right?
We're talking about it.
Art doesn't have to be beautiful. Art can poke you and it can poke you wrong. And it stirred this conversation, so it was successful in the contemporary world.
What's his name again?
Bruce Gilden.
Gilda?
Gilden, I actually have a video on Street Photographers and he's in it. I can show it to you. Yes, sir.
When you shoot outside during the day, do you always say ASA?
So I used to, you know, I call myself a digital immigrant because I was born on film, right? I used to go out and set my camera at 400 ISO and shoot it like I was shooting triangles. But then I got some newer cameras that, and I give my students an assignment, and I bet you've never done this assignment. Take your camera, set it on a tripod in your house, and make a friend sit there in a chair, just chilling. Set it at 100 ISO, take a picture. Set it at 200 ISO, take a picture. Set it at 400, 800, 1600, 3200, 6400, 1250, and go all the way. I mean, I shoot with Sony A1, and I think it goes to 1 million. Then take all those, and by the way, you can do that on aperture priority, and you can get all of it, and then sit at your computer monitor at home and open them up and say 100 ISO, 200, 400. With the Sony A1, you can't tell the difference. With my Q3, 1600, can't tell the difference. And keep taking pictures until you say, this is it. Beyond this, I'm not. Now, on some of the newer cameras, 100 and 200, I physically can't tell the difference. Looking at them side by side, they look freaking identical. So that means I'm going to take my auto ISO and set it the lowest at 200 and the highest at whatever I have decided that camera's limit is. Now, I shoot with two cameras. I shoot with one camera that has an APS-C sensor, smaller sensor. 3200 is as far as I'll go. The other camera has a larger sensor. I'll shoot it like 12, was it 1250?
1280.
1280. And that's how I'll shoot stuff on the street. When I shoot a wedding, I shoot with the A9 and a A1. One's a 24 megapixel and one's a 50 megapixel. And I'll set both those cameras the same way. I know what is acceptable for me with this camera at that ISO. Don't listen to what I tell you. Don't listen to what somebody else tells you in a book. Do the little test and I'll set my auto ISO to go that range. Now, there's times that I want it to be, I want to blur. I want the camera to be at 100 ISO, so I'll quickly switch it to 100 ISO. But then the nice thing is with the Leica, I have user profile 1, user profile 2, is for doing slow blurs, because it sets the camera at 100 ISO. And it gives me that 15th or 8th of a second or whatever. But I never, ever, ever used auto anything. I was amateur master, right? And now I'm like, I don't need to autofocus this camera. It does an amazing job. I'll turn it over to you. And I find the same thing with the ISO. Some cameras, you know, my Canon 1DS, 21 years ago right now, 400 ISO,
Right.
landscape, no way, 100 baby. But for people on the street converting to black and white, I've chosen what I thought was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable by that little simple test that takes 10 minutes that you can sit down and say. Now, I don't use any magic noise reduction. I might do some luminance reduction in Lightroom. I don't care to go beyond where the camera will go, but that's another option, right? Did that answer your question?
Thank you, please.
Absolutely. I mean, the tools, it's hard to think because I'm used to Tri-X, right? Tri-X is like, it's kind of grainy. 400 ISO with some of these cameras, it's like,
Doesn't have any grain.
it's like, I can't tell the difference between 100 and 400.
I also have a 1DS, that's a tractor, that is so noisy and so heavy.
But listening to it, it's such a beautiful sound. It's a beautiful sound. And my Sony does this. No moving parts. None. None at all. No moving parts. But when you're shooting a track event, sounds cool. I will give Andrew a PDF of the prompts, and there was a lot of them. It's like reflections, and I'll get, and on the other side, it has the name of all a good list of beginning street photographers that should be in your arsenal to take a peek at. And then today with the internet, you don't have to go anywhere. I mean, Joel Meyerowitz, Martin Park, they all have Instagram feeds. They post daily. You can look at their work daily on the internet as well as many of the other photographers. Now, I would not use social media as your main source, but most of those photographers work. They have websites. Go to my website. You can go to Martin Parr's website. You can go and look at historical work and also new work. Yes.
I just wanted that, I was admiring, the images that you had with the sun in the background and the people walking like towards you.
Oh, it's
in
like,
that one corner, but love the way your, the shadows coming. to-
oh, I love, when the people walk towards you, the shadows that are on the ground are like magic. And
Okay, stuff is good.
finding those shadows, and when you see them, so who's been to Paris? Okay, so you know the Tuileries Garden, right? And the Tuileries Garden then continues on past the Louvre. In the afternoon, the sun goes straight down that street. And every day I would go down to Layal and walk up that street. And then I'd go back, get on the one, go back a couple stops on the metro and walk back. Just looking into that sun, and then you can hide behind the street signs or the stoplights where you can shoot directly into the sun and see no flare. And this is where I got that experience. I was in a friend's garage, the old garages with the old double doors, and the sun was setting, and I walked into the garage right as he opened the door, and the door stopped right where the sun was. And I can shoot straight into the sun. But the sun's out of the frame. This is beautiful. And you see that light that goes around people, and it's just, it makes you like get tickly inside because it's so beautiful. And, you know, when you're in Paris and London, Paris is higher than the high line of Montana and Canada. You're really far north. So that means the sunset lasts even longer and you can shoot into the sun even longer. I photographed in Alaska, by the way, north of the Arctic Circle, and I started shooting sunset and it never set. And I just kept shooting and shooting. And finally, my wife's like, "Are you gonna be done?" I'm like, "I'm waiting for the sunset." She goes, "Stupid. Doesn't go down." I'm like, "Oh, I forgot." It was so beautiful, but shooting into the sun. Any questions? You have my contact information, feel free. You know, to me, photography is about sharing, and it's about sharing the fellow energy and the camaraderie of what I think photography could do. I love photography, I love the people that love photography, and I love just the idea that creating is fun. But it doesn't always have to be serious. And to me, street photography is kind of poking fun at people. That's okay. Any more?
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Okie dokie, it's almost 8, so we do need to get our equipment packed up, so if you want to help with that, or ask questions individually, feel free.
Yeah.
Thank you.